On the Fringe with Dan radio style. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Well, some attacks do seem to have come. We've got some speculation that maybe it was just another show. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But again, a lot to talk about, a lot going on in the world, obviously, and a lot of misrepresentation, too. Some weird stuff going on right now. We're going to try our best to cover it for you. And I also have a very strange question about Trump. Dan, love the dude. 100% supporting. Not a question like that. I have a very strange question about Trump. We're going to get to that actually really shortly. Let's get this fired off. Got some things to talk about. First off, there's a rumor floating around from former President Medvadev, and he was saying that Iran would be given gifts of nuclear weapons, or people would give them nuclear weapons. This is kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, tongue-in-cheek or what he's doing. But Trump got a hold of that same piece of news and had something to say about it on Truth. He said, "Did I hear former President Medvedev from Russia casually throwing around the N-word, nuclear, and saying that he and other countries would supply nuclear warheads to Iran? Did he really say that, or is it just a figment of my imagination? If he did say that, and if confirmed, please let me know immediately. The N-word should not be treated so casually. I guess that's why Putin's the boss, by the way. If anyone thinks our hardware was great over the weekend, far and away the strongest and best equipment we have, 20 years advanced over the pack, is our nuclear submarines. They are the most powerful and lethal weapons ever built, and just launched the 30 Tomahawks. All 30 hit their mark perfectly. So, in addition to our great fighter pilots, thank you to the captain and crew." Well done. Senator Thune's talking about how this... they're only trying to target waste, fraud, and abuse in the Medicaid stuff. I mean, this is being kind of blown out of proportion. There is discussions between, really, Hawley's the big one. He kind of uses the example of Tim Scott, I think it is, from Florida, and Hawley from wherever the hell, Missouri, and Rick Scott, sorry. And essentially, Rick Scott, the way they're set up inside Florida, this ain't going to hurt them at all. In fact, they're like, yeah, let's cut out as much of this waste, fraud, and abuse as possible. They've obviously got a lot of illegals in Florida. It's going to save them a ton of money. Josh Hawley, on the other side of the fence, they have a lot of these little teeny hospitals. And these teeny hospitals get a lot of their funding from the waste, fraud, and abuse, apparently, because by cutting that back, it's effectively going to cause some of these hospitals to be shut down. Now, we've talked a lot about this, but this seems to be really the big fight right now. And again, Hawley seems to be the big one on this particular front. Again, we'll see. It's just a big fight. They're expecting to have this bill signed by the 4th of July, which, by the way, will be out in Houston for any of you guys that want to join us. If you're going to be in the Houston area on the 4th of July, or if you'd like to be, we're going to be at a place called Two A Days, cool little sports bar, actually a good-sized sports bar, frankly. We're going to be set up on the stage, going to be broadcasting my show up on a separate TV, assuming I can pull this off. I've got a separate laptop I'm playing with here that's more of a gaming laptop. The first one I plugged in, the second I started trying to broadcast, it started getting all glitchy. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. I think this gamer one's going to work. I got to test it out today. We'll see. Hopefully it works. If not, I'm going to have to seriously figure out something. I don't know what I'll do. We'll figure something out. All said, it's going to be a wonderful experience. So if you guys would like to be a part of that, we're going to be out there live 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time on the 4th at Two A Days. Again, going to be a lot of fun. Going to be out there a day early, too. Going to be hanging with some of the sort of inner crew, if you will. A lot of the people that donate the $5 and $25 meetings that we have. In fact, the $25 meeting's coming up this Saturday as well. We're going to broadcast that. That's called In the Mix. Get to hear from the community, all the fun stuff going on. Also, music-wise, too, by the way. I guess I'm just going to do all this stuff right now. Music-wise, I've pulled all my music yesterday. It oddly was inspired by You Dropped the Bomb on Me. Because of everything that's going on. So I've got a really bitchin' set of music that's kind of around soul, some funk, a little bit of, a little bit R&B, whatever the case. It's kind of like 80s. It's going to be some really good music, some dance music in there. I don't know. It's going to be a kind of more in the soul genre, if you will. I honestly think I've only got one band in there that's actually white. I think pretty much everybody's black. So it should be fun. It's going to be really, really good music. Songs you know, songs you actually like. And we'll be doing that this coming Friday. So a lot of fun. And then we will be doing the Law of One on Thursday. Again, Friday and Thursday show, both 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Both of those shows, that's when they broadcast. So we should be having a lot of fun on that. So, okay, all said. let's get into some other stuff here. The Senate parliamentarian, she's been going through this big, beautiful bill or whatever, and she's finding all sorts of little things that she thinks need to be yanked out. It seems like some of these are specifically coming from the Senate side, for that matter, but a lot of stuff that's not technically reconciliation worthy. I do think the parliamentarian is being difficult. Elizabeth McDonough, I think it's close enough or whatever. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in there. Something to do with increasing the federal employee retirement system contribution. That's kind of outside of what a reconciliation would normally be allowed. And they're talking about the Byrd rule is really what their ruling is for that. There was also, what else? I thought there was one other thing in here that they were talking about getting rid of. Provisions granting authority to agencies to unilaterally rescind funds appropriated by Congress by establishing an incentive program for federal employees to identify unnecessary expenditures. They consider that to be outside of it. Again, this is the deep state's attempt to try to knock as much stuff out of this big, beautiful bill as possible. We'll see. Worst case scenario, we'll pass all this stuff once we get through the next election, because paper ballots are coming, folks. The word on the street is all over the place. Paper ballots will be coming. Judge orders the release of Kilmar Obrego Garcia as he awaits federal trial. They did say that essentially ICE could pick him up immediately. They haven't. He's actually been released. Ocasio-Cortez is now walking around with him. Whatever. They're making a big deal about it. We're going to see what happens. I think ultimately this dude's going to end up getting kicked out of the country. And if he's not guilty, I mean, okay, cool. But he is here on a green card, and if he is involved in protests and stuff like that against the United States, that's probably, or our allies for that matter, that's not cool. I mean, should send his ass packing. So, I don't know. We'll see what comes. I'm going to give the guy his time in court. Now, this picture, this map, I don't know. Maybe it's mostly for me. But again, I wanted to bring it up. Just one, Americans in general aren't real good at geography, self-included. Throw myself on that. And I keep getting all the seas and oceans and everything all confused, which one's which. So the Strait of Hormuz is over here. It's the Persian Gulf, which makes sense, right? We all remember that from Iraq, which Kuwait and Iraq are right at the end of the Persian Gulf. You got Iran running down the one side, and United Arab Emirates. You got Oman. You've got Saudi Arabia kind of sharing the other side. That's the Persian Gulf. Makes sense. Persia, Iran. So, perfect, right? Now I know for good. I have that stuck in my head. And then the Red Sea on the other side of Saudi Arabia, different strait going on over there, but you got Yemen, Ethiopia, Africa, basically, all that good stuff. And then the Mediterranean Sea is really up where Israel is and all of that. Just to try to help with the geography, essentially. Now, this is pretty cool. So I talked about this yesterday too, and there was rumor, and I wasn't sure. I don't think I fell on this sword. I hope not anyways, but I don't remember exactly what I said. But the discussion was that Tulsi Gabbard was not shown in the pictures or was not there, was how the stories were going. What I did notice, and I even saw it from Fox was running a thing I was watching, and they were showing interesting pictures. None of them showed Tulsi, but one of them did show, what was this, Ratcliffe, I think. And he had this purple tie, and I'm like, okay. So that's legit. So this photo came out. Tulsi Gabbard was there in the Situation Room. And so a lot of people misrepresented whether she was there or not. They did it intentionally, trying to make it seem like there's a divide when, in fact, there wasn't. And I think the one thing I said is I'm not sure if the DNI would even need to be there for something like this, but I think I said I'm just not sure if we've seen pictures with her in it or not. They always seem very well chosen. But whatever the case is, clarification on that. Now, here's Mockingbird Media on our side. Yeah, I think it's really important, folks, to realize we've got a whole lot of people that think they're awake just because they're, quote, Republicans. It's not true, okay? People that are awake can exist on both sides. Generally speaking, exist, I think, probably more on the Republican side / center. But here is a whole bunch of people that said if you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. Here's another one, Gunther Eagleman. If you are upset that Trump took out Obama's nuclear facilities in Iran, you were never MAGA. Here's Val. If you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA in the first place. Baron Trump. I may upset a lot of people with this, but if you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. Giordino Bruno. If you're no longer MAGA because President Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. We did the same thing, guys. We did the same thing. And again, it's because repetition. I don't know if you've ever watched Bo Burnham. Dude's a funny comedian, very talented musician, comedian dude. And that's one of his songs is all about repetition, because essentially that's one of the huge problems with America right now is we have an attention span that's about 4 seconds long. And if you don't repeat it multiple times throughout, you will lose them. It's pretty sad. Everybody's talking about right now how we should impeach Trump. Not everybody, but a lot of people on the left. We should impeach Trump because he attacked Iran. First off, many attacks have happened throughout history with presidents attacking without congressional approval or without Congress declaring war. In fact, I think Congress has declared war like 5 times in our history. We've blown the hell out of way more people, way more times than 5 times. So it's stupid. It's pointless. But then when you get down into the Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, Trump's not the only one that's been saying this. And it's funny how the left can't seem to remember shit anymore.
The United States is clear. We will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon.
If I'm the president, we will attack Iran. Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that.
Make no mistake, a nuclear-armed Iran is not a challenge that can be contained. It would threaten the elimination of Israel, the security of Gulf nations, and the stability of the global economy. It risks triggering a nuclear arms race in the region and the unraveling of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. That's why a coalition of countries is holding the Iranian government accountable. And that's why the United States will do what we must to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. I made that clear when I came into office.
And look, I mean, Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? And what we saw in terms of just this attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles, what we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have proof...
So as we can see, everybody is on board with this general consensus, even though they keep trying to tell us they're not. I want to remind you guys of our little guys, little ones, our pets, the ones we love so much. Their immune systems oftentimes get punished because of a lot of the foods that we buy them, the toys we give them. We don't do it intentionally. We actually think it's healthy food, but there's really no guarantees. And so a lot of times there's different chemicals in the food, or in the case of some of the toys, they're made in China and they have things like lead in them. This is very bad for animals. One of the best ways that you can help your animal prolong its life, and essentially prolong its time with you, which is what this is about. They don't live long enough. I had to put a dog down once. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. In fact, I've never bought another dog, or gotten another dog, or ended up with another dog since. Love them. Dogs are hands down one of the coolest creatures on this planet. Hands down. Love them. I know some of you are more cat people or whatever, but I am a dog person. I'm just not a big... I've had a couple cats. Kind of one in particular that I actually liked, Had one that I tried to pet, and he kind of liked me, and I'd pet... And it was the second I'd get to like the third pet, and that was usually when I got attacked. I don't understand cats. They make zero sense. They're like women to me. They make no sense at all. It's okay. I love them. They just don't make any sense. Dogs make sense. They're stupid like me. I love it. We get along. We're like, da-da-da, and he says, da-da-da back at me, and we're like, we're going to go da-da-da together. I love it. That's how it is done. If you want to keep them around longer, make sure they've got the immune support they need. This mushroom, it's called Coriolus versicolor. It's a mushroom that enhances the immune system, not only just in dogs, not only just in cats, not only just in horses, but actually also people, believe it or not. A lot of different projects. You can get into the research. There's also some people that talk about their experiences. I always recommend you share it. And they do, in fact, talk about the antlers. Antlers are fun, by the way, because deer and antelope, they shed their antlers every year. And then they grow them back and they get an extra point or whatever, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why the multi-point, right? That's a 9-point buck or whatever. I think it's 9 years old, or I don't know if it's exactly how it works, but the older they get, I think they tend to get more points on their horns. Again, not a hunter. But they fall out naturally. So people pick them up, they use them, they get them, and they turn them into sticks for the dogs. Dogs love sticks, right? Well, that's one of the many things that we kind of don't think about when we give our pets toys, right? As far as a dog's concerned, you could give him a piece of wood and he'll run around with that thing in his mouth and chew on it and just be stoked. That dog is stoked. What's better about antlers is they've got calcium, they've got minerals, they've got actual stuff in them that's healthy and beneficial, and it helps with their teeth. So it's one of the best toys you can actually give your pet. They got the rope pull toys. These ropes don't have chemicals in them, but they've also got the Coriolis versicolor, one of the most common ways to get this into your animal. Easiest way to do it, too. Especially if you got an animal that's reasonably young, doesn't have a lot of problems. Just get the mush puppies. One mush puppy a day. They're going to get that mushroom inside of them. It's baked into the cookie. The cookies are delicious. Dogs love them. And boom, you're giving them that extra immune system support. Now, if you've got an animal that's a little further along in age and or has some problems, you probably want to figure out ways to up how much of that Coriolis versicolor you get inside of them. It makes a huge difference in their immune support. Huge difference. In fact, it has turned around a number of different ailments in many animals. A lot of skin coat issues, issues with mange and stuff like that. There's been issues with dogs having like swollen arthritis, like a lot of weird stuff that animals get. And so this is actually shown to be hugely helpful. Now, again, mush puppies might not cover it at that point, or you don't want to be feeding them so much they get fat. So you might want to swap out some of their foods, or maybe you get the special sauce and you squeeze that on top of their regular food. And that helps get more of it in them without necessarily going crazy on the calories. A lot of things to consider, and they certainly have amazing freeze-dried foods. The freeze-dried is really awesome. You get a 1-pound bag of food, and it's equivalent of 5 pounds of food when you actually hydrate it out properly. And again, a lot of animals like it if it's got a little gravy in there anyway, so sometimes the moisture of the food makes it even better. They've got regular dry food if you want to go down that path. So again, they've got canned food as well. Dog biscuits, they got mutton mince. Chill doggies want to pull something out of the fridge because dog knows when you go to the fridge, you're getting a treat for you. Why don't you grab a treat for them, and you two can live in happy hog heaven, all right? Also, cats, same situation. Dogs, the Mojos is what dogs, they're offered to dogs as well, but it's also what's offered to cats. Cats don't like mush puppies. They're a cookie. Cats aren't really into cookies, right? You guys know that. I even know that. And what they got is Mojos. It's a liver treat that's got that stuff baked into it. So it's super good. They've got the special sauce. They've now got canned food. Very cool. They didn't used to have that. Turkey entree, canned food, 6 cans for $25. Not a bad deal. And it's got the Coriolis versicolor in it. Complete, balanced dinner with really high quality ingredients. Very good food. And they've also got a nipster thing that, again, with the rope, doesn't have strange chemicals. Horses, they've got mush ponies, and they've got crazy ways you can buy them, because obviously you might have a bunch of horses, and they might eat quite a few of these a day. It's a great way to get that Coriolis versicolor inside of your loved horses. And then there's a human tab, believe it or not. A lot of these products are incredible. You just take 1 or 2, 4 of these. They say it's 1 per 50 pounds, right? So for someone like me, it's basically 4, kind of like in between 3 and 4, but whatever. But it's 4, and you pop those, and again, helping your immune system. And it's really what it's all about. It's just trying to keep ourselves as healthy as possible. The gummies are incredible. That's an easy way to do it. And if you want to get your kids involved, they're extraordinarily delicious. In fact, I don't think I have any more of the gummies. Those are so good. I left other things open and started eating the gummies because they were freaking awesome. Gummies are tough for me, though, because I think they're so delicious. I tend to eat more than one. But then again, when it comes to Coriolis versicolor, that's a good thing. Something to consider. Go to danradiostyle.petclub247.com. That's danradiostyle.petclub247.com. Make these healthy choices for your animals so they can stick around longer and be with you. Because ultimately, that's what it's all about, right? Life's too short, especially for them little guys. All right, so we got a lot of stuff going on in Iran right now. First, tankers are performing U-turns in the Strait of Hormuz. We do know, and I think I've got the story a little further over, but I'll say it right now. We do know that the parliament, or whatever they're called in Iran, their version of parliament, they essentially passed that they wanted to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know if it's officially been done yet. There's been approval from their standpoint, but we know China doesn't necessarily want them to, because China, that's going to affect them. They get a lot of their oil through this particular Gulf here in the Persian Gulf. So we'll see what comes in the big picture, but there is discussions of shutting it down. Here's Donald Trump sharing with us the one of the B-2 bombers landing, as just after their successful trip and finally made it back. Check it out. Now, we also know Trump did truth out. The damage to the nuclear sites in Iran is said to be monumental. The hits were hard and accurate. Great skill was shown by our military. So, again, that is what Trump was talking about. He did say obliteration is an accurate term. The white structure shown is deeply embedded into the rock, with even its roof well above ground level and completely shielded from flame. The biggest damage took place far below ground level. Bullseye, I don't know what picture he's referring to. I wasn't quite able to easily figure that out. Now, something a lot of people may not have thought about, may not know, or may be curious about, hopefully. But the B-2 bombers, they were on a 37-hour flight. Think about that for a second. 37 hours in the same aircraft, in the reasonably small cockpit. So how do they do that, right? Obviously, they have to go to the bathroom. Obviously, they need to eat. And obviously, they need to sleep. This is why they had a crew of two. One crew member could sleep while the other could fly, and they did it in shifts. They also had a microwave, a toilet, and some sort of sleeping rack or bunk or something to that effect, a cot. There's something they can, I think, fit right behind that they're able to sleep. So these guys were on 37-hour-long flights, refueled multiple times, obviously flew great distances, and delivered their ordnance, as well as the decoy aircraft, which was really slick how they pulled that off. So again, crazy what they did. They pulled this off. This was quite an impressive feat. And again, the holes, we definitely have seen a few. I think this is, one of them here, one over here. There's one right here. There's a few of these. I feel like this one site got hit a few times, but yeah, it's pretty quick. At least that looks like one. Anyway, lots of wildness going on up there. So, alert, shelter in place is being told to people in Qatar. They were expecting an attack to come. It did, by the way. We'll get there in a second. Qatar was kind of pissed off about it in the big picture. Again, can't blame them. Now, Trump and the whole regime change thing, this is kind of interesting. I think this might be where I'm going to pull up the thing that I find interesting about Trump right now. Something, to me, doesn't seem right about the Trump that we see all the time. I don't know why. Don't want to speculate. I mean, I've heard rumors, but I don't think anyone knows. Not even close. Now, first we'll read this. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA, whatever, however you want to say it. Make Iran great again. Now, again, I've said this before. Regime change typically means CIA, kind of color revolution, generally speaking, is really, really bad for the big picture. This regime change seems more like we have a bad regime and we're desperately trying to hand the country back to Iran. It's what it looks like to me. Okay, maybe it's because all the Kool-Aid I drink. It's possible. It's very possible. But to me, it very much looks like, look, we want to give this back to Iran. We want you, the people, to run your country. This country has been a mess since the Ayatollah kind of took over a long time ago. That's when the mass exodus of Persians left and went to basically Paris, Los Angeles, and I think like New York are like the three most common places that Persian people kind of spread out to. They're all over the place for the most part, but the most heavily saturated areas of Persian people. And again, great people. I've got many friends that are Persian. The lady at the gym I know really well is Persian, and she's Christian, but she's Persian. And so, huge love for the people. This is just a great people. They're intelligent. Usually your bankers are, right? It's just funny how stereotypes work. Girlfriend's Filipino, so, nursing, What else do they get into? Nursing. But yeah, Persians tend to be kind of involved in money or sometimes pharmacists. That's very common to see Persian pharmacists. Again, it's just funny how we tend to bounce into specific places. Now, here is the thing I want to show. And what many of you might be going is, all right, what am I seeing? So I just want to give you guys a second to pay attention to this. And I watched this speech for a while. And I saw Trump stand where Kennedy's standing, and I saw Kennedy standing over here where Trump is standing, and nothing changed. And what I'm pointing out to is the height. Trump actually looks a hair shorter than Kennedy. I don't think Kennedy's wearing, I don't think Kennedy borrowed Ron DeSantis' shoes, so I don't think that's the case here. But what I do want to point out is Trump, the real Trump, is 6'4". Kennedy, 6 foot, 6 even. I don't know if you see on the image here. Trump is definitely not 4 inches taller than Kennedy, is he? No. Who's this guy? It's not real Trump. Can't be. Real Trump's 4 inches taller than that. What's going on? Don't know. That is not the real Trump. Not trying to be conspiratorial. Don't know what's going on. I mean, I've heard that he's in Cheyenne Mountain. Can't imagine he's just been living in Cheyenne Mountain for the last, well, since the last election, I think is what most people say. Because he was technically the commander-in-chief. So they said, yeah, he went to Cheyenne Mountain. He's just been living there forever. I don't know. Can't imagine the dude's like, I'm dying. I got to play some golf. And they're like, no, we got this video game you can play. And he's like, that's not golf. I don't know. But that dude's not 6'4". Here's Carolyn Levitt talking about the regime change and sort of, I think, trying to help frame Trump's words, how he's basically saying regime change is okay when everybody, we weren't supposed to be doing regime change. Still technically shouldn't be, but I still think it's defined differently. Whatever.
The president believes the Iranian people can control their own destiny. And what he said last night makes complete sense. If the Iranian regime refuses to come to a peaceful diplomatic solution, which the president is still interested in engaging in, by the way, why shouldn't the Iranian people take away the power of this incredibly violent regime that has been suppressing them for decades? And so our posture has not changed. Our military posture has not changed. These were decisive precision strikes that were successful on Saturday evening. But the president is just simply raising a good question that many people around the world are asking.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. And I still say and swear and think that we are trying to give the country back to Iran. I do believe the world is moving into a more positive place. I don't care what anyone says. I'm reasonably sure that's exactly what's happening. I see evidence of it all over the place, though I'm cool with people disagreeing with me. That's totally fine. Which is what we're not always going to agree on everything. That's fine. Here's J.D. Vance talking much the same.
Well, I think the foreign minister is exactly wrong. We didn't blow up diplomacy. We only took this action, Kristen, when it was clear, as the president said, that the Iranians were tapping us along. I think it's important for the American people to appreciate here that if you go back to March of this year, we had the entire administration engaged in this diplomatic effort. And frankly, in March of this year, we had some optimism. How do we get from there to now? And the answer is we felt very strongly that the Iranians were stonewalling us. They weren't taking this seriously. They were trying to draw this process out as long as possible so that they could rebuild their nuclear weapons program without the threat of American action. We had a limited window in which we could take out this Fordo nuclear facility in particular. The president decided to take it, but we didn't blow up the diplomacy. The diplomacy never was given a real chance by the Iranians. And our hope, Kristen, as the president said repeatedly, is that this maybe can reset here. The Iranians have a choice. They can go down the path of peace, or they can go down the path of this ridiculous brinksmanship of funding terrorism, of trying to build a nuclear weapon, and that's just not something the United States can accept. I want to say something, Kristen, just to the Iranian leadership. Look, they have tried to build a nuclear weapons program. That program is now destroyed. They tried to build a conventional missile program to attack neighbors in the region. That missile program has shown to be a failure. They have funded terrorism aggressively in the region, and now most of their terrorism proxies are destroyed. The Iranians are clearly not very good at war. Perhaps they should follow President Trump's lead and give peace a chance. If they're serious about it, I guarantee you the President of the United States is too.
That's all we're saying. Just give peace a chance. VP Pence, no regime change in Iran. He continued on with this same lady here. Here's 23 more seconds.
Does the United States support Israel killing Iran's leader?
Well, look, that's up to the Israelis, but our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do. I mean, again, I think they're doing a pretty bang-up job talking about this. Here's Secretary Rubio spending some time with Maria Bartiromo on Fox News, talking about this whole process.
Are we now at war with Iran?
No, we're not. This is not a war against Iran. This is very simple. 67 days ago, the President of the United States sent the Iranians a letter, and it said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to have a militarized nuclear program. Let's negotiate. I want to do this diplomatically. I want to do this peacefully. They tried to play him along the way they've played every American president for the last 35 years. And, the president told them, if we don't get a deal, which is what he wanted, then I'll have to handle it differently. And that's what he did last night. He handled it differently. But that was an Iranian choice. We didn't make that choice. They did. By playing games with Donald Trump, they made a huge mistake. And President Trump acted last night. And I think the world today is safer and more stable than it was 24 hours ago. And a bunch of these countries putting out statements condemning us, privately, they all agree with us that this needed to be done. They got to do what they got to do for, their own public relations purposes. But the only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime in Iran.
Have you heard from anyone in Iran, and are you expecting retaliation?
Well, if they retaliate, it'll be the worst mistake they've ever made. Look, we can fly in and out of Iran at will. We went in last night. The president sent our military forces from halfway across the world, went in, conducted this operation, left. Not a shot was fired against us. They didn't even know what had happened. By the time we left, the planes were out of their airspace before they finally started realizing they'd been hit. So it would be a terrible mistake if Iran retaliates. But that's not our goal. We are not declaring war on Iran. We're not looking for war on Iran. But if they attack us, then I think we have capabilities they haven't even seen yet. It would be a terrible mistake on their part. And frankly, it's not what we hope for or wish. What we want now is to ensure that Iran never has nuclear weapons. If what they want is a civil nuclear program where they have power plants like a lot of other countries in the world have, they can do that. That's the deal that's been offered to them. They rejected it. They played us. They tried to play us, I should say. They wouldn't respond to our offers. They disappeared for 10 days. And now, the president had to take action as a response.
And the response included strategic ambiguity. Can you walk us through the plan in terms of how it was deceptive?
We've talked about the deception part where they sent 3 aircraft off towards Guam. I think this might even get into it a little. Let's see. Yeah, this is talking about the possible closing of the Strait of Hormuz, which, again, I think still remains to be seen.
Close the Strait of Hormuz to try to disrupt oil transportation across the world?
Well, I encourage the Chinese government in Beijing to call them about that because they heavily depend on the Straits of Hormuz for their oil. If they do that, it'll be another terrible mistake. It's economic suicide for them if they do it. And we retain options to deal with that. But other countries should be looking at that as well. It would hurt other countries' economies a lot worse than ours. It would be, I think, a massive escalation that would merit a response, not just by us, but from others. So, look, they're going to say what they need to say. These are the things that need to happen for their own internal politics and so forth. But in the end, we're going to judge them by the actions that they take moving forward. We had 3 objectives. We struck those 3 objectives with decisive force. And that was the point of this mission. And that's what we achieved. What happens next will depend on what they do. They want to negotiate. We're ready to negotiate. They want to get cute and do things that are dangerous. We have responses available that are devastating.
Cute. I like that. Good choice of words. So Israel attacks Iranian regime. We've got a prison that they hit. They blew the doors off of some prison. They're hitting some of the other sites, too, that are directly involved with supporting the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is a big part of the group that really holds down the regular Iranian people. Again, not quite a color revolution, because typically that's done in a very different fashion. This is literally militarily destroying Iran's regime's ability to control its own populace. Questionable if, some people would say that's not fair or whatever, but that's essentially what they're doing. We've seen the Iranian people rise up. It happened, I want to say 2018 or not too terribly long ago, and they got shot down hard. These people got just rocked, jailed, killed. It was very brutal, very brutal. It was, not quite Tiananmen Square, but I think getting there. So what's going on in Iran is a mess, and we're trying to free that country from the deep state. Satellite images show trucks were lined up at Iran's Fordo nuclear facility for U.S. airstrikes. A lot of people are speculating that they likely moved the enriched uranium from the mine prior to our hits. They knew they were coming. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, man, this just destroys the whole point. No, we destroyed their ability to continue enriching. That was huge. That was a victory, big victory. In fact, that was a large victory. All we need to do is figure out where this stuff's at, and we can destroy it there. I don't think they've got a lot of deep underground facilities that they can shove it at. And this stuff is, you could put it in lead containers maybe and shield it to a degree. But this stuff's not ridiculously hard to find. It leaves a signature. We've got satellites that can see stuff to this level easily. We probably saw exactly where it went. Now, oddly, Israel's apparently been paying attention too. Netanyahu claims to have interesting intel on Iran's uranium. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has claimed he has interesting intel on the location of Iran's enriched uranium. He made the remarks following U.S. airstrikes on Tehran's nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. Speaking to reporters during a briefing on Sunday, Netanyahu confirmed that Israel is aware of the location of Iran's 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, but refused to give further details. He's like, yeah, obviously I'm not going to tell you guys what I know, because that would instantly change. Now, I do want to point out one thing. It's a neat theory that people are pushing around right now. Don't have any facts that it's true, but it actually makes a lot of sense, and it does sound very much like a 5D chess move that Trump would, in fact, do, and that is that the plan for Netanyahu, see, right before the war started, just to kind of give a little context, right before the war started, he got sick, and there was a judge trying to do some stuff. Then he got sick for a day. Then they had an election, and somehow, barely, by like 2 votes, Netanyahu stays in power. Then immediately, 1 day later, goes to war. Goes to war with Iran. Wartime presidents, they're hard to kick out, just ask Zelensky. What many people suspect is that by Trump knocking out these 3 sites, he took away Netanyahu's ability to make this an endless war. He took away Netanyahu's ability to have this drag on longer than it needed to, because the thing that he needed to get, well, it's already been gotten. It's done. It's toast. So very well might have kind of put Netanyahu into a box that he can't get out of. And so this could, again, speculation, but this could actually play a larger role in sort of taking away Israel's ability to make this a much bigger deal than it's going to be. We'll see if there's truth to that. Obviously, Israel's still playing a significant role. How these things play out, well, again, we'll see. It's going to take time. We're obviously going to experience this all together. We'll see how that goes. But here's some more. China and Russia calling for a total ceasefire.
Meeting yesterday. But Russia's former president, Dmitry Medvedev, claims multiple countries are ready to step in to help Iran achieve a nuclear weapon. Stating this, quote, the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue, he said. A number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. President Trump has since responded, saying that talk of nuclear weapons should not be treated so casually. This reads like a Joel C. meeting.
For sure. Now, again, I want to point out something that's funny, too, from a lot of our content creators. How many people, and I mentioned the Guam thing, but I also knew we had some at Diego Garcia, which is interesting. We must have pulled those back, too, because we launched another 7 aircraft from the United States, from Whitman. So everybody was talking about how we were sending our B-2s over to Guam. Obviously, we're preparing to attack. But that was always a decoy. And it's just funny how many of us that caused, to run down that wrong rabbit hole. I thought that was kind of interesting because it worked. And again, sometimes that's the point. Sometimes getting us on the wrong page and then us blasting it out and then all of us are talking about it. Yeah, it creates an information chaff, as I call it. Chaff, like when you have a radar-guided missile and you drop, essentially it's like pieces of aluminum foil or tin foil or whatever. And it helps scatter the radar signature of the plane. It helps scatter the radar, and it causes the missile to want to go into that because it's like a big radar signature. So, again, kind of makes you wonder if some of these things were done intentionally to take us off the mark, specifically, even. So, again, China and Russia calling for a ceasefire. That's where that one ended up, but no biggie. We've got explosions over Qatar. They actually did, in fact, attack. Let's play this right now.
Of Al Udeid, where the U.S. normally has a large number of transport planes, refueling planes, that those tarmacs had been emptied of those warplanes. But Al Udeid normally would have 10,000 U.S. troops based there. There had been warnings to U.S. embassy staff to shelter in place and at other embassies across Doha. We also now are learning that the airspace over UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where the United States military has another large military base, that airspace has been closed. And we also understand there could be an imminent threat to U.S. troops and personnel at bases in Iraq. That, if you remember, just 5 years ago, Iran fired ballistic missiles, dozens of them at U.S. troops in the wake of Qasem Soleimani's killing. So a lot of intelligence warnings. We brought it to you on air just a little while ago, and now it seems that those explosions are being heard over the capital of Qatar.
Well, and through your reporting, you readied us for, exactly who would be still there, and you're furthering that now to let us know who is able to get out and who's expected to be there serving right now. 6 missiles may not sound a lot to some people because they can do so much damage. And Iran reportedly has been running low on, we don't really exactly know what they have. Maybe they're not running that low. But with precision, 6 missiles are a lot. They haven't really been precision guided, though, going into Israel. They've been hitting all those residential targets. Not saying that they didn't want to kill civilians, but a little bit more haphazard. This seems more precision.
Well, I would say, Harris, the difference between Qatar and Israel is that it's just a few-minute flight for both short-range and medium-range
so both
ballistic
kinds.
or cruise missiles. You also could be having, and my guess right now, based on the way the Iranians have been behaving in terms of targeting Israel, you may also have swarming drones that could overwhelm any air defense system. So obviously, the U.S. military, U.S. Central Command has been preparing for this moment. They have been setting up air defenses. Al Udeid would be one of the most protected bases that the U.S. has, but they also have long known that they are sitting ducks there. And so therefore, right now, we have to just see if any of those ballistic missiles or cruise missiles got through.
All right, Jennifer Griffin, stay where we can get you. I know you will as the news warrants. We'll bring you back. Appreciate you.
So, yeah, we've got that going on. I think we've also got some more. Here's some of the anti-missile defense systems trying to fight off stuff.
الله أكبر تعال مدام
So there's obviously a lot of strikes that were getting hit. It doesn't look like anything hit the ground, at least from the view that we were able to see at that point. So we have Qatar condemning the Iranian attacks now on the U.S. military base. So this is part of the problem with this is they just attacked Qatar. Now, I want to say for all you guys that are going to try to correct me, it's Qatar, Dan. Trump calls it Qatar. And I think it's one of those situations like Quebec or Quebec. I think it's just one of those where you can pronounce it both ways. I don't understand the difference, frankly. But I know Qatar is a correct way to say it. So I'm going to keep calling it Qatar, even though everyone else likes to call it Qatar. Whatever, Qatar. But yes, Qatar says, Iranians attacking us. It's not cool. They say they intercepted a missile barrage over the Al Udeid air base. No casualties, no incidents. Qatar says it reserves its rights to respond. So now Iran's pissed off another country. Isn't that interesting? Now, I want to point out something. I feel like this is where this should be. Oh, shucks, it's where it should have been. Let's pull that back up. Good job, Dan. There we go. Let's do that. So this lady, Farnaz Fihi, Iran coordinated the attacks on the American air base in Qatar, and Qatari officials gave advance notice the attacks were coming to minimize casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plans. The officials said Iran symbolically needed to strike back at the U.S., but at the same time carry it out in a way that allowed all sides an exit ramp. They described it as a similar strategy to 2020 when Iran gave Iraq heads up before firing ballistic missiles at an American base in Iraq following the assassination of its top general. Now, again, this is from alleged 3 sources close to the matter. Farnaz Fihi is a journalist. She's an Iranian-American journalist who has worked for the New York Times since 2019. Does she probably have connections? Probably. Is she for sure accurate? Definitely no chance in hell she's for sure accurate. Is this possibly what they did? Yeah. I mean, it's happened before. Trump told us about the last one, though, if you guys remember correctly, right? Trump told us, they told me, and did this really big story. It was kind of cool. So maybe. I would be, again, cautious. A lot of people will run around and say this is fact. I've already seen a bunch of people running around saying this is fact. I don't read it as fact. I read it as an allege or an allegation or the possibility. We have no facts for sure yet. There's maybe some more confirmations we can get from other sources, possibly. But I'm not going to take Farnaz Fihi as the end-all, be-all. So just something to keep in mind, guys. I know this story's out there. That doesn't mean this for sure is true. Doesn't mean it's not either. So it's one of the hard parts about doing news. A lot of people just like, I read this thing on Twitter, so it's got to be true. It was on the internet. I saw it on Wikipedia. Yeah, we got to stop being like that, guys. We got to use a little more, get some more facts if we can. Otherwise, it might be true. It's allegedly true. It could be true. It's not definitely true. There's absolutely no way this is definitely true yet. Makes sense? I'm there with you. But it's not a guarantee. Iran reportedly moves to shut the Strait of Hormuz after the U.S. attacks. This has to do, it is parliament. Cool, I got that right. The Iranian parliament backed this measure. It's ultimately up to the Ayatollah and even potentially the president, but the Ayatollah is really where it's at. Iran's Supreme National Security Council and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Whatever. China sidesteps the question on urging Iran against closing the Strait of Hormuz. Now, again, like Rubio says, this would hurt China way more than it's going to hurt us. China gets a huge amount of their oil from Iran. A lot of it does come through that particular Gulf region. Now, we do know for fact that Iran has created a railway to China for fuel, for oil. So they have the ability to ship over rail straight to China. Now, I don't know how set up that is. I don't know how much they could literally move, like how many cars they actually have that they could do, right? Like versus filling up a ship and, sailing that elsewhere. Again, don't know. That's a little outside my pay grade, frankly, at the moment. But we'll see. We're keeping tabs on it. But this is an interesting kind of question. They want to, like China says, they want to continue playing a constructive role for the de-escalation. Nobody wants to see this spin out of control. Especially Russia, too. We know that. Iran's foreign minister, he's heading to Moscow to talk with Putin. Again, this is one of those things where I think Putin's going to be the one that talks to Trump. Maybe Xi, but I don't think we're as close to Xi right now as we'd like to be. I think we're definitely pretty close to Putin at the moment. Putin knew we were going to do this, I think, for the most part. And he'd be the one to be like, dude, can we call it here? And I think that's what Trump's trying to do. trying to bring the rhetoric back a little bit, trying to say, hey, we want to come back to the negotiating table. We stopped what we felt we had to stop. Let's talk. We want you to have nuclear power. That's fine. Nuclear power doesn't require heavily refined uranium. In fact, it's pretty ugly uranium. It's less than 20%. I forget the exact numbers, but it doesn't require super, super awesome uranium to do that. When you get into the medical side of things, I want to say it gets close to the 60% mark. To get from 60 to like 90, 95, which I think is where the weapons grade stuff is at. So even the 60% stuff they have isn't technically weapons grade, though they might be able to use it if they had enough of it. I'm, again, not a nuclear expert. I do understand that the refinement's supposed to go up closer to 90% for the weapons grade materials. The use for medical, and I don't know if that's like MRIs and weird stuff like that. I don't know. Again, we're getting into nuclear physics here, and that's not my thing. It's fascinating to me, and I'd love to read up on it. Maybe I'll find some info, and I'll share it with you guys a little later. But outside of that, it doesn't seem like Iran could make a full-blown real weapon, but they do figure they got enough of this stuff floating around where they're saying they could make 10 weapons. I don't know. So I thought 60% wasn't generally refined enough. Again, not an expert. So they've got enough of this stuff. At very least, they could make a dirty bomb, which would be pretty bad too, but all said. We've got a report warning that there could be a woke army or some sort of dark money-funded thing that's going to happen here in the States, taking advantage of the Iranian people that are here. Not normal Iranian people, but I mean actually sleeper cells, basically. So a lot of terrorist activity possibilities could happen. Again, don't be side-eyeing every Persian person you bump into. Most likely they've been here for a long time, especially if it's someone that has been here a long time. These people dislike Ayatollah a bunch. Talk with them. You'll actually find them or their families left back when the Ayatollah took control. They snuck out. They went a lot of different ways. Many, many, many Persian people left Iran back when the Ayatollah took over. They don't like what's happened to their beautiful country. They don't. They love America, too. They love America. Some of the most loving of this country are some of the Persian people I've known. It's pretty beautiful to see, actually. So, again, it's not a people that we're fighting. We're going after the deep state. We're taking out the deep state, which essentially is the Iranian regime. Do we want to force a regime change? No. We want the Iranian people to do this organically. We don't want to force it. Because if we force it, we'll fuck it up. Guaranteed we'll fuck it up. That's a for sure. For shizzle, as they would say. Mainly Snoop. He would say that. Most nobody else would. Except me, probably. Like what's Snoop Dogg's forecast for the weather? Drizzle for shizzle. All right, not funny, but still. Ukraine says it foiled a Russian spy agency plot to assassinate President Zelensky. I think we're supposed to feel bad for him. I don't. I don't like this dude. I actually consider him to be one of the largest problems on this planet. If we could get him just sort of out of the way, and I don't mean kill him. That'd kind of be a rough way to do it. I'd like to see an election happen in their country, and then you can decide what you want to do with him after that. But whatever the case is, they tried to take out Putin's helicopter. You guys are aware of that with a drone swarm. So it would be fair game to try to take him out. Supposedly it was stopped. I don't know. I don't know if they'd pull it off. If Russia was serious about taking him out, I think he would be dead. I don't think they're serious about taking him out. I think they actually care about the Ukrainian people. Russia does, I think. Ukraine used to be part of Russia. Putin considers Ukraine Russia. Like, they're Russian people as far as he's concerned, at least former Soviet for sure. And certainly the Eastern, like Donbass, Crimea, all that stuff. Yeah, those guys are definitely Russian. So, again, Putin is... Look, here's the thing. Accept what's happened on the ground. That's what he keeps saying. And this war can be over right now. Just accept that we own the land that we currently occupy. You can't have it back, at least right now. Done. Deal. Done. Let's sign it. Let's stop fighting. Let's put an end to this. And if Zelensky continues to be a dumbass, Russia's got no alternative but to continue to hit certain targets and hurt Ukraine to the point to where they finally say, all right, we're done. Enough. They're not going to win. They're not going to win against Russia. Hell, Europe would have a hard time winning against Russia. Russia's been on a wartime footing for a long time. I'm not saying they're impossible to stop, no. But I am saying they have a bunch of weapons. They have a bunch of hypersonics, and they have a bunch of nukes. There's no way they win. Just no way. Now, of course, Deep State wanted Russia to turn it into a nuclear war. That's not happening, and it's not going to. Texas did something cool. They're the first state to actually, essentially, it's a weird, I don't fully understand it, but they've essentially signed into law Bill 1056. This happened June 22nd, making Texas the first state of the union to establish a practical electronic payment system that's backed by gold or silver. Interesting. First place where it's a payment system. You can't use coins like money, I don't think, because that's deciding money, and the Treasury is the only ones allowed to do that. States don't have the power to do that. But some sort of electronic payment system that you've got backed by gold or metal or silver, that's kind of interesting. Whatever the case is, they've got that passed. They're the first state to do it. That's pretty powerful. Now, you gotta almost chuckle. The world is enhanced war with Iran, right? They've even attacked back. The big fear, the thing we were so afraid of, the stock market's going to hate it. Price of oil is going to go through the roof. Well, oil's down. It was at 72. It's now down at 68.98 or 69, basically. It's gone down $6.50. Strait of Hormuz might possibly get closed, and the price of oil is dropping. Stock market's jamming up. Well, not jamming. It's up, over 0.5%, almost 1%. In NASDAQ. And we're at war. Do you think any of this stuff actually follows what's happening in reality? Or do you think it's a bunch of bullshit? Like me. I think it is. I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. In fact, gold's up at 34 again, which is fantastic. I don't know where silver's at. Where's that usually? FX? Where the hell is they... There it is. Yeah, silver's up 36.265. That's pretty good. Silver's definitely on the rise in a good way. Yeah, it's not quite at the... they were saying it's about 80% of gold. It's close to that. Silver is still one of the best buys on the market, guys. I can't even recommend it enough. One, I should probably turn my camera on, but two, the silver prices are really low. It's a really good commodity. If you're someone that doesn't have gobs of money, get some silver. Get some silver, get some coins, get some silver, get some bars, get something. It's small, it's easy to use if you need to. If not, it's you're going to feel like you've got some protection. Even if you don't got a bunch of it, you're going to feel like you have some protection. My good friends at Goldco, they have a lot of different ways that you can pick up gold and silver for that matter. But if you want to just get precious metals, put in your 4 data points, talk to them, say, hey, I want to buy some silver. Boom, they'll set you up. I've done this before. It's an incredible process. They're awesome. It was super easy. I literally was done in less than a day. I want to say it literally took me I feel like there was a couple emails back and forth, and then I got a DocuSign thing. Done skis. And then, yeah, pretty soon within the mail, 3-4 days later, shows up in the mail, and there it is. My silver, my coins. It was awesome. Go to drslikesgold.com. drslikesgold.com. That's just to get precious metals. If you're in a 401k or an IRA, get the hell out of their system, folks, or at least diversify heavily out of their system into precious metals. You can do that with a precious metals IRA. You still get the same pre-tax benefits. You can continue to put money into it. It's actual physical metals that are put into a trust. They're yours. Physical metals. It's not paper or anything crazy like that. It's legitimate physical metals that you could say, hey, send me those physical metals. And they'd be like, that's like the same thing as cashing out. And you'd be like, yeah, I get it. And they'd be like, all right, you're going to get penalized and taxed. And you'd be like, I get it. And I'll worry about that later. Send me the metals. And so, again, there's a lot of things you can do. You can't do that right up front. You have to set it up. You have to get it into the trust. And then if you down the road want to do something crazy like send it all to me, fine. But if you go sideways, like you're supposed to, that's tax-free, that's penalty-free, and they're going to help you do that, right? And then you worry about those things later once you've got as much silver and gold as you can. That's just kind of what's going on inside my crazy brain. My friends at Goldco, they're not going to necessarily share that same view. Their job is to help you through this process legally, not give you opinions, not tell you what to think, not tell you how to think. That's your job. Or I guess I influence that a little bit too, but that's really your job. Before you sign anything, make sure you understand what you're doing. Make sure you understand what's happening. Ask questions. They've got, again, the best customer service ever. Go to drslikesgold.com. drslikesgold.com. Some cool free stuff that you could get. 1 half-ounce free Ronald Reagan coin. Fill out the 4 data points, click the button, call within 20 minutes. Almost assuredly going to get this thing if you've got a qualifying 401k or IRA. Second, up to 10% of the face value you're going to get free silver. Up to 10% of the face value, free silver. And the reason it's up to 10% is essentially if it's under 99,000 or 100,000, let's just make the number easy. It's like one of those two. If it's under 100,000, it's like 5% or something like that. If it's over 100,000, you're going to get 10% free silver. So, example, I got a $250,000 that I'm moving into a gold IRA. I'm going to get $25,000 of free silver. That's what we're talking about. Huge perk. Silver's so underrated right now. It's one of the best values out there. Highly recommend you check into it. And also, you're going to get a great book talking about Trump and your financial future, as well as your gold and silver kit. Go to drslikesgold.com, drslikesgold.com. Get out of that stupid system and get into a smarter precious metal-backed system, and then you don't have to worry while the rest of the world's freaking out. You won't have to. You're not going to have to worry. You're going to be covered. Go to drslikesgold.com, drslikesgold.com. Get out of that system before they get out of you. Large fire in Northeast Columbus Highway after a tanker overturns. Again, not uncommon for these types of places to be where tankers could potentially overturn on an off-ramp or on-ramp or whatever the ramps are when you go from one interstate to another. But this is the ramp going from I-70 south to State Route 161 east. This happened about 1:45 p.m. yesterday, caught fire. Now it's like a hazmat situation. I assume the fire's probably out, but still pretty horrible. Natural gas project is going to reboot after officials wake up to the stark realities. New York has started to realize we're not going to be able to power our city, especially with all this renewable stuff. We won't be able to afford it. The federal government's not going to give us free money anymore like we were hoping. So Trump worked out a deal where they kind of opened up 2 pipeline projects that they had essentially put on hold / stopped. These are being opened back up in New York, so hopefully that will help make a difference. I want to play a little of this. This is a weird disc-shaped craft that the military got. I don't know. We'll play about 4 or 5 minutes of this. Yeah, I'll just let you guys come to your own conclusions. I don't necessarily want to share my thoughts on this per se.
Tonight on The Future of Everything, we've got some new UAP video from filmmaker and journalist Jeremy Corbell, who is standing by to break it all down. But first, here's a little bit of a closer look. This is a freeze frame. This is with some boosted contrast of what appears to be a disc-shaped object captured back in 2020, possibly somewhere over Afghanistan, Pakistan, the border there. Roll the video here. Jeremy says that this was filmed by some sort of DOD asset and forward-looking infrared shot from above looking down, and was, according to Corbell, the U.S. Air Force describing this object as possibly navigating through the clouds. There's no heat signature that you can see here. Nothing you would expect for a normal aircraft as it dips its way through. We're told the Pentagon logged it as a UAP, but so far it has not appeared on the Aero public list. That office tracking this stuff, whose official response to our request for comment was, quote, "We have nothing to offer." So Jeremy Corbell is the host of the podcast Weaponized. He joins us on set. Jeremy, good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to see you, man.
All right, so getting into this, navigating through the clouds, like, I hate to even bring this up, but that sounds a lot like Jordan Peele wrote it in Nope, right? That's what we saw a little bit in Nope. What's going on here? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so for a couple years of investigating this footage, right, making sure it's authentic, where it came from, that was the running joke, was that it looks like the movie Nope. What we're seeing here that's different than ever before, you know that I've obtained and released with George Knapp thermal videos of UAP. Now, our government has admitted some of what we put out. They've admitted their UAP. I'll tell you this, I'm not saying it. That was in the original footage. It says UAP navigating through clouds. They called it a disc. I'm not even calling it a disc, but what you're seeing is first shape. I have never seen in all UFO history, when it comes out of military, an actual circular form. It was amazing to me. The second is the movement. When you see it make an abrupt turn from your left to your right when you're watching it. And the third thing that really was astonishing to me, this is in thermal. There is no heat signature of traditional propulsion. It is a perfect looking disc. Maybe it's an orb. I don't know, but I do know this. Our Air Force passively captured it. Then they said that this is a UAP. It is still designated a UAP. So when George and I obtain and release these, it's so the public can see. We're hoping to do a little bit of the job that we're not seeing with folks from Arrow.
Now, it does say AI enhanced. There, it looks like there's some artifacting around it. What is the actual video, and what is possible artifacts from trying to boost the contracts and see what's going on here?
So we did an analysis of the video, but what I did was make sure to put out the original things that George and Knapp and I obtained. So you see it clearly says video 1, video 2, video 3. Our own government, because they've been studying this in the intelligence community since 2020, they did a sort of rudimentary, I would say, kind of highlighting or enhancement of it. And that's why you see like a white ring around it.
It's 2020 enhancement. This is like pre-ChatGPT, pre-AI revolution here.
So what we did was we went in there just so people could see it better. We make it very clear, AI enhanced, because it changes the shape. It's a perfect sphere or a perfect circle, depending on angle of observation when you watch it. So what we did was heighten contrast, and we also made sure that you could see as it goes into the clouds. We punched in. So the military videos are the ones that are black and white. The ones that we tried to enhance so people could just see a little bit better of shape and movement is kind of more blue.
So that'll be good enough on that. But yeah, so I don't know, some interesting stuff coming out in the UAP side of life. Another individual that was doing the new robotaxi from Tesla. This guy took a ride. I don't know, it might be interesting to some of you guys. They started this in Austin, Texas, and this gentleman was taking his first ride. Kind of interesting. Check it out.
All right, everybody. I am on my second robotaxi ride. We are heading over to Auditorium Shores. We'll be there in 5 minutes. And here is the screen. I will tell you, this is my second ride. The first one will be up very soon. I'm going to record a podcast with Hans, and then we'll get it up on the interwebs, as they say. Super smooth. It's literally like riding in a Tesla, just hanging out, and there's no driver. Zero drama. We have our...
Yeah, it's so strange to see a car driving with no driver, right? Like, that's weird. But here we are today. U.S. is opening fly production facility for combating the Mexican New World screw worms. Yeah, obviously they're not as much fun as they sound like, but they're flesh-eating flies. They create a maggot that's flesh-eating, and then they continue to lay eggs and just eventually could kill the host. In some cases, they've killed humans. I think you've got to be pretty much like unaware or out or asleep like for weeks for this to happen. But they find some sort of wound, and then they lay eggs inside the wound, and then that pretty much starts leading to all sorts of problems. They're releasing a lot of flies that are sterile. So I guess the flies, once they bang each other, that's it, right? One shot, one chance, and damn it, I wasted my load on someone that can't make babies. Humans might find that to be a good thing. Flies, no, don't like that. So yeah, this is what they're trying to do. This is apparently not the first time we've had to fight this problem, and I'm not trying to put a lot of fear on it, but this is could be devastating to our cattle industry. So we certainly don't want to see that happen. Judge is set to rule on the controversial sale of 23andMe's massive pool of genetic data. I'm just curious how this one plays out. Again, I didn't do it. I knew better. I don't care, frankly, what my genes say. There's a lot of reasons for that. Maybe I'll tell some of you guys off camera one of these days. But outside of that, I'm not even remotely interested in what my genetics say. But yeah, a lot of people are very worried that this will be sold to someone that may not have the best interests of everybody's genetic information at heart. Wojcicki, I think that's how you sort of say it. It's the chick that's her sister, I believe, was the one that was running YouTube, and she's got this nonprofit as well as she was running 23andMe. So there's a lot of questions as to the connections of this particular individual. The company that's talking about buying it is a brand new company, which is also strange. Like, what? How do they have the capital to buy this when 23andMe is dying a painful death? Whatever the case is, not cool. And yeah, that was it. Good final story. So a lot happening in the world. Hopefully we continue to stay safe. I think Trump knows what he's doing. I think a lot of people are making a lot of crazy noises for whatever reasons. I just think, be careful, guys. Careful not to jump to conclusions. For those of you guys that like to try to do similar stuff or like to try to do stories talking about what's going on in the news, do not necessarily be so focused on being the first person to talk about something, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the wrong person, and you can do harm to a reputation by constantly being wrong. You'd be surprised how few effects in some of our circles, which is very strange. Like, they're constantly wrong, and yet people continue to go back to them. It's like, why? Why? They put a crazy clickbait headline, and then you read it and watch it, and you're like, they never said anything about what was in the headline. Why is that? So strange. Just be careful, guys. A lot of information's running around. Use your discernment. That's what we're supposed to be learning right now. It's a big part of what the skill set that we're supposed to be learning right now is to get better at discerning what's being fed to us, what information's being given to us, what sounds credible, what should be probably cast aside, and what maybe is very credible. We need to be able to discern those things, and we need to stop using emotions to decide whether or not we think something's correct. Something that feels right isn't necessarily right. Look to see what supports it. What supporting evidence do you have? That'll be a bigger help in the big picture. I love you guys. Let's keep fighting this fight, shoulder to shoulder. Where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan Radio Style.